So welcome again to today's lifelong learning workshop called Making Homemade Jam with our wonderful presenter, Lynn Royston of Hillside Urban Gardens. She is going to take us through a simple recipe and some of the principles and theory behind turning fruit and sugar into delicious jams. And having been the recipient of some of Lynn's jams, I can attest to her excellent skills in this area. So I am going to turn it over to Lynn, and she is going to go ahead and get us started. Lynn.
Good morning, everybody. Thanks for joining us today. And thank you to the JC Alumni and Foundation for sponsoring this event today. So welcome, and we're going to learn how to do jams today. So what we're going to do is that we're going to do something called a quick jam. It's something that you can do at home. If you've got some fruit hanging around, or you've got something in your garden, or somebody's given you some fruit, it just gives you another alternative of something to do. And we can all do it at home if we have a pot to cook on the stove. So we have a couple jams here. I got a blackberry and a Concord grape jelly, but this is not the kind of jam we're going to do today. These have been water bath and preserved. So what we're going to do is quick jam, which is going to be something you can freeze or keep in your refrigerator for a couple of months. And everybody can do it. So we're going to do 3 different ones today. We're going to do a lemon marmalade, and we're going to do a strawberry jam with actually some raspberries in it. I picked those from the garden today. And we're going to do a savory jam as well. We're going to do a tomato jam. And we'll talk about that in a little bit. One of my favorites. So what we're going to do is that to save time and everything, I have already put the lemon jam mixture into the pot to save some time so we can get these done simultaneously, a little bit at a time. So the one thing I'm looking for right here is that to make sure it doesn't boil over. That's why you need a pot that has kind of a tall structure to it. So the difference between the jams. So we've got jam, you've heard the term jam, preserves, jelly, and marmalade. So let's talk a little bit about those real quick. So one of the things we're making today is a lemon marmalade. A marmalade typically is a jam, so to speak, made from the skin of fruit. So when you're looking for, you're going to make orange, lemon, lime, or grapefruit, that type of thing. Those are the more common ones, or even like a clementine. You could do that as well. You're going to look for fruit that has a good skin, because the skin is really what is going to flavor the jam. So we're going to make this one here today. And the next one is going to be the strawberry. And it could be strawberries from your yard or from the store. And then I actually have some raspberries I had ready in the garden. I'm going to throw those in as well. And this is going to be a jam. So the jam is characterized as like mushed up fruit. So that's what we're going to do with the strawberries today. And then with the tomatoes, this is going to be a savory jam. Yes, you can make savory jam because really tomatoes are fruit, right? So there's just a few simple ingredients. It is a great way to use up all your cherry tomatoes. So a lot of us maybe have a few that are hanging on the vines, or know somebody that has got a big garden that's trying to get rid of some fruit. Go grab their cherry tomatoes. And why the cherry tomato make a good savory jam is they're high in sugar. So always going to have to taste them to see. I mean, you can buy them organic in the store if you want, or if they're not as sweet as you want, you can always add some sugar. So, and this is going to be our tomato jam. The thing we're not going to do today is we're not going to make jelly. So I do have some Concord grape jelly that I've made, but the process is pretty long, because basically with the jelly, you're making a jelly from juice. So you have to boil the skins of like the Concord grape, and you have to make the juice and all of that to make your jelly. That's a little bit longer than this particular workshop will allow for. So we're just going to do these 3 here today. So you're going to see that I'm going to be back here stirring every once in a while. So we're going to lower this just a little bit. And this one is almost ready. All right. So today, I want you to think about the power of 2. I have made all these recipes with the number 2 in mind to help us remember the ingredients that we need and to make each one of these. So to make the lemon marmalade, and again, instead of lemons, you can also use oranges. Orange jam is probably one of my favorite ones, or orange marmalade. So you're going to get 2 cups of lemons. You're going to have 2 cups of water, and you're going to have 2 cups of sugar. So the first thing you're going to do, this one takes a little bit more time, is that you're going to put 2 cups of water in any kind of container, and we're going to slice up the lemons and we're going to put them in there. Now again, make sure that the skins of the lemons are nice and clear. We're going to cut each of the ends off, and then we are going to cut it in quarters lengthwise. So you have pieces that kind of look like this, like a wedge, okay? And then each one of these wedges, we're going to cut as thin as we can. Watch your fingers and use gloves. When you're working with citrus and stuff like that, it will save your hands and your fingernails. So you're just going to slice just as thin as you can. And this will take some time, but your patience will pay off with a really, really nice marmalade. So what you're going to do is you're going to take, you're going to slice up about 2 cups of lemons, which is about 2 lemons. For me, it was about 2 lemons, about the size of my fist. If you have smaller lemons or Meyer lemons, you're going to want maybe 3 or 4. So you're going to take these very, very thin slices, see how thin? And we're going to put them in the water. You're going to close this up. You don't have to have something that closes, but put your 2 cups of lemon slices in here for 12 hours. So do it the night before and just let it sit overnight. Yes, it can sit longer, not a problem. And what that's going to do to this is going to soften the rind. So it's going to soften the rind so it cooks a little faster. Because all of our jams cook in 20 minutes, again, with the 2. So that's how you're going to make the lemon. Now, one thing about the lemon that I really like, and that is that you can flavor it. Today, I'm going to make just straight lemon. I need to stir it again. One thing about the jam, you do have to stir it all the time. So you're going to see me coming back here stirring just to make sure it's not going to stick. So in the last 5 minutes of cooking, you can flavor your lemon marmalade. So I've got here a couple of whole sprigs of mint, and I also have some thyme. And one of the new flavors I've seen coming out a lot, people are flavoring with lavender, okay? So if I want to make a flavored jam, I can go ahead and put these whole sprigs in the last 5 minutes, stir it around, and it'll give it a nice mild flavor, because that means the sprigs will take them out. And what that does is just going to flavor it. And with the thyme, some of the little leaves will fall off, and maybe even with the mint, the leaves will fall off. That's okay. We'll just go ahead and leave those in there. They're all edible. So, and then also one of my favorites also is if you have some fresh ginger, you can grate maybe a half a teaspoon or to put in at the last 5 minutes, and you have some lemon ginger marmalade, which is very good. So with the lemon marmalade, you can flavor it if you want to make it more of a savory. You can put it on chicken. You can use the lemon, you can put it on top of, you can use it as for icing on cakes, or to put in bread pudding, or one of the favorite things is to put it on ice cream. So that is going to be our lemon marmalade. And let's stir it again. It's bubbling up here, starting to change color.
Lynn, while you're stirring, there was a question that wanted a little bit more clarification between the difference between jam and preserves.
Okay, preserves. Well, in the modern times today, the term jam and preserves are kind of getting mushed together. But really what a preserve is that it's something that the whole fruit is preserved. So if you think about it, where you go to get a can of whole tomatoes, right? That's the whole fruit in there. Or when you see like a half of peaches in the, in the can, or you can preserve also pears. You put pears in a canning jar and put some simple syrup in there, and you can water bath that. That would be a preserve, something that really is the whole fruit. That is really the definition of what a preserve is. So, and where the jam is more considered to be smushed up fruit. You'll see that I have my potato masher here. So jam is typically fruit that is cut up or mashed in kind of like a soupy type of mixture where the preserves, again, is the whole fruit. And you can do that if you want. It's really the same process. You got to heat them up. You got to put the sugar in there. It's going to create a syrup. And for the preserves, you can water bath those as well and preserve them. So I hope that clarifies the difference. So the next thing we're going to do here today is that we're going to start with this. We're going to do the strawberry jam. So here's my pot for the strawberry jam. So I've got a good pot that's got a good bottom on it, and it's got a tall edge on here. And again, with the strawberries, we're gonna do 2 cups. Now I've pre-cut some of them already, and I've got a couple more here. I use a serrated knife. That tends to work for me better. And I'm gonna just reserve the tops and stuff to put in the compost. So I'm just gonna cut them in quarters. If you see that one of the strawberries are really big, sometimes you get like those giant ones. I want to cut it in 6 or something. So try to make them close to the same size, but it's not going to hurt it if one's bigger than the other. So now I said that there's 2 cups of strawberries, and look, there's my 2 cup mark there, and you're like, oh, she's got more. Aha, I do. But remember that when you're cutting these things up, there's a lot of air in there. So if I were to take my potato masher and just mash it down, I can see, okay, I've got 2 cups. So that's how I do the measuring for the jam for that. So this recipe is 2 cups of strawberries. And 2 cups of sugar. This is just regular cane sugar. You can use brown sugar if you want. You can use honey if you want. If you use honey, you want to use about a 1/2 cup less. So there's some white cane sugar. And now remember, I told you I picked some raspberries. I'm going to put them in because I had them in the garden, but you don't have to do that with just regular strawberry jam. But it should give it a nice little kick in there. And the one thing about the jams is that the fruit, whether you're doing peach or strawberry or blackberry, you want to put a couple teaspoons of lemon juice. And what that does is that it helps preserve the color. So we're going to put, this is juice from the lemons. I have a lemon tree. You can use prepared lemon juice if you want, or find someone that has lemon. So we'll put that in there. And that is it. So you've got all that in there, and I'm just going to stir it up. And I'm just going to make sure that the sugar is incorporated all over. And then we're going to put it on the stove, and always start out on the lower heat, between low, maybe like low and medium. Because just like when you put sugar on regular food, it kind of macerates a little bit, starts breaking it down, and that's what's going to happen here. It's going to start making the juice. So we're going to put this over here, and I'm going to turn on the burner. Okay, put it a little bit low. And we're going to start, let's get that up to speed. So that's the strawberry jam. And as soon as we get ready to turn it up, I'm going to go in with my potato masher, and I'm going to mash it up a little bit more. So the question I get a lot is, well, how much mashing should I do? Well, number one, you don't have to mash it at all. If you want something that, think about your mashed potatoes. Do you like your mashed potatoes creamy? Do you like some lumps? Do you like a lot of lumps? Jam is really the same way. So what I like is I like some lumps in there, but I like it a little bit creamy as well. So I'm going to mash mine just a little bit more, and just so it has a little bit of a smoother texture. But again, it's one of those things is you make it the way you want. You want it more lumpy? It doesn't hurt anything. It cooks the same. So we put that on about 10-15. So we're going to give that about 20 minutes. And but we're going to, again, you're going to see me go back there. We're going to start stirring. But next will be, I'm going to do the potato masher for that. So I'll get that one ready. And you'd be amazed how fast this thing is already breaking down. You can see it there, but look, it goes very quickly. So we'll be ready pretty soon. All right. So let's see here. All right. So the next thing we're going to do is the savory. So we've got these tomatoes. These are cherry tomatoes. They're the sweetest ones. So if you've got some in your garden, go out there and pick them. Again, we're going to do the 2 cups. 2 cups of the little cherry tomatoes. And what you're going to do is you're going to cut them in half. Don't have to take the ends off. It really doesn't matter. So I'm just going, I'm gonna cut them in half. And again, usually I do the same thing as I do with the strawberries. It is 2 cups, but I'll smash it down to make sure I get a good solid 2 cups in there. And we are going to put this actually on top of the stovetop in a saucepan. And we're gonna cook it there. They'll cook down fairly quickly. I'm gonna put a little bit of salt in there. And I did taste these, and I thought they would be a little sweeter. So I've also put a little bit of sugar. So in here, I've got some salt. I got a little bit of sugar, and I'm going to add some smoked sweet paprika because that's what I like in the tomato jam. You don't have to do that. You can omit that. So we've got our pan here. So we've got our tomatoes. I'll put those in there. There we go. Now I'm gonna, just like we talked about adding these the last 5 minutes, I'm gonna add the smoked paprika probably halfway through. That way it'll have a little bit of a more pronounced flavor at the end. So we've got the salt, put that in there. We've got a little bit of sugar, oh, got that in there. So I'll leave this over here to put on. That's it. So we've got this, we've got our sugar, we've got a little bit of salt, and I'm just gonna put it on top of the stove and we're gonna start cooking it down.
Lynn, while you're getting it cooked down, we've had a question. How much of each for the tomatoes do you need for salt, sugar, and paprika?
How many tomatoes?
No, how much quantity? Is it a teaspoon, a half a teaspoon of salt, sugar, and paprika that did you just put in?
A half a teaspoon of each. So half a teaspoon of the paprika, half a teaspoon of the sugar, and a half a teaspoon of salt. Again, we're trying to stick with the power of 2 today. So those are the 3 that I put in there. You can, if you like cumin, you can put cumin in there. Or if you like curry, yeah, you can try that too. So for the, I'm gonna stir the strawberry. It's already starting to bubble already. And we're almost ready to take the lemon out. It's about ready. So there's something called sheeting. So if you see, I know it's pretty far away, but I'm stirring it, and we can see that it kind of has a line down on the bottom of the spatula. It's called sheeting. That's how I can tell if the jam is thickening up. Okay, so I'm going to talk a little bit more about the savory the tomato jam. It really is one of my favorites. And one of the reasons is that, if you're trying to watch your weight a little bit, which I always am, but it works great like on a hamburger, whether it be a beef hamburger, a turkey burger, or a meatless burger, or instead of mayonnaise, use the tomato jam, or on a sandwich. And also during the holidays, I always make it, and I toast up some little slices of baguette. I put some goat cheese on it, and then the tomato jam on top of that with a little like parsley leaf. And it's a nice Christmas appetizer. It's very, it's low in fat, it's figure friendly, and it's got all the colors of Christmas and the holidays. So it's always a big hit. So
we have one more question, Lynn, sorry. Could you add balsamic vinegar to tomatoes or strawberries? And if so, how much and at what stage in the cooking process would you add that?
So I would say the answer would be yes, because it is an acid. And I would say that I would add probably 1 tablespoon, and I would do it about halfway through.
Great.
Hope that answers the question. All right, so we can see here that we've got all of our jams. We've got 3 jams cooking now, right? So we're getting pretty close. So I'm going to talk a little bit about some tools and stuff that that you can get, and some resources. So those of you may have heard about the Ball Blue Book. Okay, this is like the Bible, so to speak, of canning. It's been around for, I don't know, probably over 100 years, right? So it's got all the basics in here of canning. It's got some recipes and stuff. If you want to start doing some canning, more than just doing the quick jams here, then you want to get a Ball book. I really recommend this one. It's really very good. And if you get really interested, Ball also has the complete book. It has a lot of really super recipes in there. You can make like jalapeno jam. You can make all kinds of different cranberry jams, all this kind of stuff. So this is a really good book, and it might inspire you to try something new. So the Ball Blue book is really what you want to grab if you want to really get started doing your canning and preserving. Oh, I hear some. There we go. So that's coming along nicely. And I hear our tomatoes. So the salt that we put on the tomatoes, it's going to start letting out the juices of the tomatoes. They're going to start breaking them down. So we just want to make sure that we just keep stirring them. That should be good. And if you're going to get some tools, usually for canning, the tools that you can get usually come in a whole pack. But you know, if you can only get a couple tools, sometimes you can pick them up at estate sales or yard sales. This one here is really good. This is the one that goes over the jars. So if you have a canning jar, they fit all of the lids, and that way when you put it in there, it doesn't splatter all over. So this one is really very good. And then this one here is designed especially to put in the jars, either that way or this way. It takes super high heat, I think up to, I don't know, 600 degrees or something. So these are very good, and they're worth getting if you're gonna, you know, make your jams. Because as we know, when you're cooking sugar, it gets very hot, okay? So you notice I have gloves on. It's not only just for the acid in the fruit, but also just for protection as well. And you gotta watch out when you're cooking. I also have an apron on because when the jam starts getting thick, it can kind of, you know, spray out some little specks here that kind of burn you. So make sure your little ones are not around. Maybe they're taking a nap or they're playing outside with a friend, just so they're not up by the stove. Or your little fur babies too, your cats or your dogs. You don't want them to be looking up and get any kind of splurts of the hot juice over here. So you can see, look how high this is. This is all the way up to the top. That's why you need to have a pan that is high. Now the white one here is a little lower, but it's wider, so it's able to take it. So this lemon is done. So I'm going to turn that one off, which is that one. Okay. Okay, so the lemon is off. Strawberry is cooking up. So what I'm going to do with this one now, remember we talked about, we're going to mash them up. So I'm just going to go here. Just going to mash up a little bit in here, kind of look to see how many big pieces we have in there. That's it. Done. So now we're just going to let this cook for another 20 minutes. Let it cook down. We're going to keep an eye on it though, so it doesn't boil over. It should be fine. So the lemon we just turned off. So when you're making the jams, you have to do something at the very end called to set the jam. And that means you're just going to let it, you're going to turn off the heat and you're going to let it rest for maybe 10 minutes. Because if you jar it right away out of, you know, turn off the heat and you come here and you put it in the jars, the fruit will all float to the top. So your jars will have all the fruit at the top and it'll just be all clear at the bottom. If that's a look that you like, then do it right away. But if you want all of your whole fruit or pieces of fruit incorporated in the whole jam, you have to you turn off the heat and let it sit for about 10 minutes.
Lynn, how often should someone be stirring the jams that are on the stove?
Okay, you see that I'm just stopping every few minutes and stirring. That's how often you should be doing it. Making jam is not something you need to be here. You need to be present for that 20 minutes. You can't, I recommend you don't go off to do something. You have a 20 minutes so you can stay here by the stove and stir it because it can burn. And if you're going to make jam, you will make batches that burn. You will make batches that does not thicken up. We all have, and it all depends on how much pectin that we have in the fruit. So yes, every few minutes you need to go back and stir for two reasons. One, that doesn't burn. The other two is you want to make sure it's not boiling over, because it is difficult to get. If it boils over, it is difficult to clean your stove after, or you have your husband clean the stove. So now this strawberry is it's really bubbling pretty well. This one here is really looking good. So let's get this one over. You can see this one. Okay. So here's our lemon. Yes, it's very hot. Please be careful. But you can see how it has turned color. It's kind of a nice honey color. Look at that. It's got a pretty color. It's got the pieces of fruit are soft in there. And it's thickened up. So we've got about 6 or 7 more minutes of this to cool. But it smells good. It's got a good color, good consistency. Okay, so we're gonna leave this here. And always be careful. I think for me, the towel really works the best, because a thick towel folded like this, because it really, it keeps that high heat off of whatever surface that you're putting it on. So the towel works really good to put the pot on if that's something that you have to do. Now, if I was making this just a regular day, I would go and put the towel in the bottom of my sink, and I would put this pot in the sink. It's a great place to cool it because it keeps the kids away from it. It's safe in there, and the towel will keep the heat off the bottom of the sink. So I always do that, and then I will usually spoon it out of the sink and then put it in the jars, which I have ready. So we're going to keep this for just a little bit more. It's got a great color. It's looking really good. Okay, so what are we going to do next here? We're going to make sure we keep stirring the tomatoes. Now, see, those stuck a little bit. That's all right. So now these tomatoes I see are not rendering a lot of liquid, so I'm going to add a little bit of water to it. I've got some water in here. And I'll probably put about 3 tablespoons of water right there in there, because you're going to find all fruit that you either buy or have in your yard or someone gives to you, they're all different. So some of them are really juicy, some of them are more dry, some of them are sweet, some of them are a little more savory. So you kind of have to see what you got here. There we go. So that's going to just allow them just to sweat a little bit, I guess you could say. It's doing pretty good. So what I'm doing with the spatula, I am just kind of smashing them up a bit to kind of help them along. And the skins are on these because they are cherry tomatoes. A little bit extra vitamins in there. It's all good. These are almost ready. Let's see here. And I just lowered it just a little bit because they're starting to get really thick now. Looking good. Okay. So someone asked about the balsamic vinegar. So by putting the balsamic vinegar into the tomato jam, it'll actually keep the tomato color much better too, because you got a little bit more acid in there. So a little bit of a plus for that. Okay, so we got a couple more minutes from this, and we're gonna do the same thing. We'll let it sit for a bit, and that'll be done. And the strawberry, how are we doing on time with that? We're doing pretty good. We're gonna let this cook a little more. You can see it's still pretty runny. But I can feel that it might start to stick a little bit now, so I'm gonna turn the heat down a little bit. Because what happens is the jelly's getting a little thicker, right? So it's staying on the bottom a little bit more. So I just lowered it a little bit. And that should be good. That's thickening up nicely. There we go. Okay, so how are we doing here? Almost done. Again, the color is looking good. You see that? I don't know if you can see the color. Got a nice golden color. Almost looks like honey, actually. Okay. So another thing about how are you going to store your jam? You can even put it in a coffee cup if you want. It doesn't matter. I always have a lot of jars. I just bought these actually at IKEA. Most jars cost about $1 a piece. Or you can put them in something like this. I get these at Smart and Final. These are deli containers. They have lids on them. They actually are microwavable, which means they can take the heat. So these make very good storage, especially if you want to freeze them. So you can put them in here, put the lids on, always mark the month and the year, and then what it is, and can keep it in your freezer. That way you can have your jam through the wintertime, which is kind of fun. So you can use just about anything. If you have your old jars that don't have any jam, and of course you can use those as well. So I'm going to try to put some in here. So I'm going to use my cutting board to put the little jar on. Let's see if I can get the stuff in there. Let's see what it looks like. And I tempered the jar, so I hope we don't get a crack here. Okay, so you can see I've got a nice bit here, and I will put this over here so I can get it right in there.
Lynn, when you say you tempered the jars, what does that mean, and how did you do it?
Tempered means is that you don't want to put a really hot liquid into a glass container that's just been sitting there. You want to warm up that glass before you put something super hot into it. So you can, I use super hot tap water to leave that in the glass, in the jars to temper them, kind of starts bringing up the heat. So when we put the super hot jam in there, then it doesn't crack. That's the whole idea, is that you want them to be tempered. You can also take your jars and put them in the oven. When I'm doing the preserving the canning, I will go ahead and I have a sheet pan with a damp towel, and I keep my jars in the oven. So when I'm ready to put it in the jar at this stage, I take them out of the oven and they're already hot. So it's hot into hot, because then after this they have to go into the water bath. So for the quick jam, I will go ahead and put some hot water in there that tempers it, which means it just starts heating up the glass so it doesn't crack. So we can see this one here is done. So we can seal it up if we want, or we can just leave it there. We can see what it looks like here. And there we go. I don't know if you guys can see, but there is the lemon marmalade all ready to go. So again, this is very hot, isn't it? This is hot. You want to keep this out on your counter until it gets to room temperature before you put it in the refrigerator. You do not want to put either jam in the refrigerator or in the freezer that's hot like this, because what that'll do, that brings up the temperature in your refrigerator, which can spoil other food. So put it in your jar or whatever container you choose, go ahead and leave it on the sink. Again, on a towel or something that can absorb the heat until it's room temperature, and then you can go ahead and put it in the fridge. But if you can see how it looks pretty good and it's nice and thick. And you'll also find as well, as it cools, it gets thicker. And when you put it into the refrigerator, it'll get thicker again. So if you've cooled it on the sink, and you're like, oh, it's really runny. Well, if you put it in the refrigerator, it will thicken up. So don't be distressed about that. Because all these jams that we're making today, we did not add any extra pectin. So that's a whole subject in itself. So pectin is something that you add to jellies to thicken them up. Some fruits don't have a lot of pectin in them, so you have to add some, I guess it's not really artificial, it's actually made from fruit. So this will help thicken up any of your jams or jellies. But today, with the lemons and the strawberries and the tomatoes, they have plenty.
Lynn,
Okay.
how long would each of these keep in the refrigerator?
About 2 months. You keep them sealed, they'll last about 2 months. It'll last as long as your regular jelly you buy in the store. Because it's gone through the same process. The only process it hasn't gone through is a water bath, which keeps it in a sealed container. But once you open your container and put it in the fridge, right, from the store, it's not sealed anymore. So it lasts about the same amount of time. All right, so that one's ready. And the strawberry. That's looking good too. Okay, so the strawberry, I'm going to turn that one off now. It's looking really good. And we're going to start setting that while I do the tomato. See, it's starting, how slower it is to drip now. That means that it has thickened up. Okay, so how are we doing with the heat with this? Okay. It's stuck. All right, of course it did. There we go. Okay, so you can see, yeah, it's stuck. I got some jam on the side. That's all right. So we're gonna put, oh, I didn't put the, what you call it in. I'm gonna do it right now. The smoked paprika. So I just will mix that really good. The tomatoes are still very hot. It'll be fine. Okay. So here we go. So I just put the smoked paprika in there. And this is our tomato jam. And I'm kind of just still smushing it a little bit, but it's going to be nice and sweet, and we can use it for sandwiches and all that sort. So let's get another little jar here. And this one here, I think we're just going to fill it like this. Not quite as loose as the jam. And if you're thinking about it, these little jars, I got these at IKEA. And making little jams like this, and make nice little gifts. All right, so I'm just going to make sure that if you do try to seal the jars, that you clean around the lid here. There's one. So there we go. So there is our tomato jam. Okay. That one is done. So again, I'll put this up later. We'll put this over here. All right, so a little cleanup. Now, you're gonna find that just like I have here, that some of the jam got stuck. Now, it really is easier to clean. All you need is hot water. So if you get a towel or a dish rag, get it really hot and come over here and wipe this up. It really will come right up. The same on the stove. Once it cools, you just can't get it up. But if you pour a little hot water on it or get a hot rag, it cleans up really well. So, or put it in a pot in your sink and put some hot water in there, and the jam comes right off. So don't worry about that. Okay, so here is our strawberry jam. Okay, so you can see, you remember how it started, right? Now, this is how much it cooked down, how dark in color that it got. And that was due to the help, too, of the lemon juice that we put in there. It still has pieces of strawberries in here. You can see there's some pieces. And we're just going to take that off now, let this cool for a couple more minutes. And we'll get a jar ready for that. Again, I got these small jars here. So I'm pouring out the water because I had some hot water in there. And we're going to put that on here. And it's going to cool. So by stirring it, you can see the steam that's coming out. That helps cool it. So if I just let it actually set, it takes a little longer, but by stirring it like this, you can see the heat is really coming out. All right. So let's get our spoon here. I'll just take that off. There we go. All right. Put these in here again. Oh, I see that's too much. So we can get some of that out. A little too high. There we go. You really want to leave a little bit of a lip in there, about 1/4 of an inch, because you got to get the lid on. So if you have something that has a lid, give it a little bit of a wide berth at the top. Okay, so there's our strawberry jam. We'll close that up. This one probably looks the best in the little hearts on it, I think, the strawberry jam. But there you go. So we're gonna let these cool on the counter. And once they come to room temperature, I'll probably open them and taste them. And then we'll go ahead and put those in the refrigerator or bring them over to friends and family for them to enjoy as well. So that's it for the workshop today. I want to thank you very much for joining me here at my Hillside Urban Garden. And if you're interested, I also have a YouTube channel, Hillside Urban Garden, which we do a lot of gardening. But now we're starting to get into doing more stuff in the kitchen because lots of fruits and vegetables we have to do something with. So kind of give people ideas for that. So thanks for joining me today. And is there any other questions before we say goodbye?
Hey, I have a question.
Sure.
Go ahead.
Hey, Lynn, great presentation. Thank you. I didn't catch the first part. When you did the lemon one, did you put the lemon like rind in water, or did you add the lemon rinds right into it, or both?
You could do either or. So what I did is that I got the 2 cups of water in here, and now I'm going to put in the 2 cups of the sliced lemon. So you can put the sliced lemon in first and then add the 2 cups of water. That's fine. Either or, it doesn't make any difference. The thing is that you have them all together sitting overnight for at least 12 hours. Like I said, it could be more. So the sliced lemon and 2 cups of water, and it's just tap water or any water you want, just not hot water, just regular tap water. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, and do you strain the lemons out or you add the lemons in?
No, when you go to put it in the pot, you're going to take this whole jar with all the lemons in the water, you're going to pour it all in, and then you're going to pour in your 2 cups of sugar, and that is your mixture to make the marmalade.
Gotcha. Thank you.
And you follow the same process. Try it with oranges. It's super with oranges. So you can do the same thing with oranges or limes or grapefruit or whatever the kind of citrus you'd like as well.
Cool. Thank you.
Lynn,
You're welcome.
We've had 2 more questions. One is, if you want to make a big batch, does that change the ratio of fruit and sugar? And would you limit it to a certain amount of fruit?
Would I limit it? Well, I have some really large stainless steel pots, and I can make a lot of jam with that. Yes, it does change the, how much sugar to fruit. I have found that most recipes, not all, but most recipes for the basics like peach jam, blackberry, strawberry, it's equal amount of fruit to sugar. Yeah, that's a lot of sugar, but that's what jam is. So if you're going to have 8 cups of fruit, you're going to have 8 cups of sugar. The thing that will change from the recipes that we're doing here is that you do want to add more lemon juice when making those kinds of jams. So you want to make sure that if you are doubling the fruit and doubling the sugar, you want to double the amount of lemon juice as well. And if you're going to be making a big pot like that, please make sure you've got a tall pot and the fruit is no more than takes up to 1/3 of the bottom when you put it in, to make sure that it's not going to overflow. Okay, it will rise.
We've got 2 more questions. How long
Okay.
can these stay in the freezer?
I would say a good year.
Next question. If the jam does not thicken after it has rested, could you then recook and add pectin?
Yes.
How long would you recook for?
Well, what I would do is that go ahead and put it in your pan and bring it up slowly. Start with the lower heat and then bring it up till it just starts to boil. Just starts to boil. And then put in, you know, start with like a tablespoon or something like that of pectin and put that in there. And cook that for another minute and try it that way. You know, if you can do that, or you can just, if it doesn't set, you can, and you've got it in the small jars like this, use it for ice cream or put it in cake mixes or in bread pudding or something like that, or in cookies.
All right, I think those are the last of our questions. I just want to give a big thank you to Lynn Royston of Hillside Urban Gardens. As Lynn mentioned, she has both a YouTube channel and a Facebook page. You can follow her for some great gardening videos and tips, as well as hopefully we'll see some more of these types of videos from Lynn as well. And we actually have one more question, so hold on. Can you use a sugar replacement? And do you know which is better?
Could you say that again?
Could you use a sugar replacement? And do you know which is better?
There are some sugar substitutes out there. I'm afraid that I'm not versed in what would be better. I would suggest maybe going to YouTube to see if you can find some, you know, sugar substitutes that people have used and they work. I have not used them, so I'm afraid I really can't speak to that. Yeah, I know that there's a lot of sugar in here. It really is. So I was surprised when I started making jam how much sugar was in it too.
Well, Lynn, thank you so much for your time today and for giving out all of these great tips. We will send out the recipes, as Lynn mentioned, so you'll get an email from us afterwards. Again, find Lynn on Facebook and YouTube, Hillside Urban Gardens, and follow her.